I received a question, which is a very difficult one and interesting. Should Noahides follow the rules of Negiah? Negiah is a word in Hebrew which means touch, and it refers specifically about genders. If a person from one gender can actually touch and hug and kiss and so on, members of the other gender that are not wife and husband, of course, etc., you should think about it yourself. Now, why do I say that this is a difficult question? Because if you find verses to prove either way, yes or no, you're not going to find. So this relates more to the understanding of the Torah. What do I mean by understanding of the Torah? There's a rule in learning Torah. This rule is called Lo Darshinan Taima Dikra. We don't care, basically, about why the Torah says this. The Torah says a mitzvah. Do this or don't do that. Why? I don't care. Unless the Torah says why, but we don't really care about why does the Torah say this. So in this particular case, why, I stress this, why would the Torah say, don't go and hug and kiss members of the other gender that are not your wife and husband and so on? Because, you might end up doing things you should not be doing. You start with a hand, and you start with a hug, and you follow with a kiss, and you end up in the wrong place, in the wrong time, and doing the wrong thing. But again, we don't really care why the Torah said something. The Torah said to the Jewish people two prohibitions regarding this. Prohibition number one is called Nida. Nida means a woman that is in the period, and so on. This does not apply to non-Jews at all. No practical application. Having said that, it's important to notice that in the ancient times, why was a woman with a period called Nida? Because Nida actually means put apart, separated. That's what it means. Because women at that time used to be separated in a different house when they were in that particular period with blood and so on, because they impurified ritually, spiritually, everything that they touched and sat on and so on. So they were put in a different place until she got purified. And we do find this same thing before the giving of the Torah. The most famous story is Parshas Vayetze, end of Parshas Vayetze or Parshas Vayishlach, when Lavan runs after Yaakov, and he wants to find his guts, whatever, terafim. This is the word used in Hebrew, whatever they were. And Rachel took the terafim and she put it under her seat, and she sat on top of that. And when Lavan came into the tent where she was there sitting and wanted to check out the place, she said to him, "I'm sorry, father, I cannot stand in front of you because I am with the period, so I can't." And the father did not touch her, did not look at her, just walked out. Bye-bye. I don't want to look at you, my daughter. So we see from there that there is such a thing. And this is not something I'm saying. The Ramban says this. Noahides says this. So we do find some kind of impurity, even though they were not Jews. Lavan was not a Jew, and Rachel was not a Jew, and Yaakov was not a Jew, and so on. So we do find something like that. But even so, non-Jews, Noahides are not prohibited to have intimacy when woman is with period. That's prohibition number one. But then there's another prohibition, which is called kiruv. Kiruv means to be close. Hug and kiss and so on, which doesn't mean to have intimacy, could lead to, but doesn't mean. And Jews have a prohibition to kiss and hug and touch and so on women that are married to somebody else. This is the biblical prohibition. A woman that is married to somebody else, I cannot give a kiss to her because she, quote unquote, belongs to somebody else. What happens with a woman that is not married? Does the Torah allow you to kiss her? The answer is yes. But our sages forbade to do that. And there's a story, which I'm not going to tell the story right now. You can go look it up. Today we have Google and Wikipedia and all this garbage. And you can look up the story about David, which actually he was the father, but Tamar Avshalom, that's brother of Tamar, and Amnon. This story, it's a very sad story where Amnon ended up raping Tamar, his half-sister, and Avshalom ended up killing Amnon. It's a whole story. Okay. Based on that story, David HaMelech, King David, he decreed that you cannot be alone with a woman. Just a man and a woman cannot be alone. It doesn't matter whether they're married or not married. You cannot go close to her, you cannot give a kiss to her, and so on. Of course, this decree was for Jews, and non-Jews are not obligated to follow the decrees of Jews. But let's go back to the beginning. Why was this actually decreed? Because we saw a story. What happened after a man was alone with a woman, and so on and so on. Now, having said all of that, the book Mitzvahs Hashem, Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem by Rabbi Yonasan Shteif, which is a book on the laws of non-Jews, he brings in chapter 71 that Bnei Noach are actually forbidden to be close to the other gender, and so on. Close means, again, to hug and kiss, and so on. And he definitely recommends to also follow all the laws of Ichud. Ichud means to be alone with the other gender in one room. There are laws about it. There are details about it. I'm not going into the details right now. But he says clearly in this chapter 71, yes, they have to be careful with this. Of course, everything has to be put into place and into context and so on. And if this is going to cause serious problems, okay, you have to ask a rabbi a specific question about a specific situation, what to do in that situation. But in a general, very general idea, yes, they should be careful with this. And again, the source is Sefer Mitzvahs Hashem, chapter 71. He brings quite a few ideas about this, but definitely the conclusion is, yes, you have to be careful with this.